Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, brought to you by Party Slate, our title sponsor, the first website designed specifically for event professionals and venues. And on The Wedding Biz, I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons and those who I feel are the next generation icons of the weddings and event industry. And this is all to provide you with education and inspiration. So one thing that I would also like to help you with is whatever it is you are struggling with in your career in the event industry. If you could email me at andy@theweddingbiz.com. Again, andy@theweddingbiz.com. Let me know what you're struggling with, and I would love to do what I can to address it in the interviews and in some other ways that will be coming up later on. And so again, please write me, let me know. So if you missed last week's episode, it was Carrie Goldberg, the travel and weddings director at Harper's Bazaar, where she oversees all things bridal, weddings, and travel for Bazaar.com. Great conversation with Carrie, very elucidating. And so this week's guest is none other than Christina Matteucci, executive director of David Beahm Destination. And Christina talks all about how to be the best, which she terms number two to her number one, and also what the number ones can do to best support their number twos. Later in the interview, Christina gives another term for that, which I really like. I'll let her reveal it. And I heard her speak about this topic about a year and a half ago at Engage. She got a standing ovation. So we took a deep dive into this. This is a great conversation. So enjoy my conversation with Christina Matteucci. Christina, you are the executive director of David Beahm Experiences. And in the About section of the website, you have a tagline being Mommy Dearest, Travel Maven, Protective Bulldog. Now, Travel Maven I get, but Mommy Dearest and Protective Bulldog, you got to tell me what that's about.
Well, my nickname is Teuccimama, which stems from my last name, Matteucci.
And say it in Italian? How's it?
In Italian, it's Matteucci.
I love the sound of that. Okay. You could curse and it's going to sound romantic.
Well, I'll try and hold back from the swear words. But so my nickname is Teuccimama, and that's just because I naturally have become sort of a mother hen to my company, to some of the newer people coming up in the event industry. And so becoming a mother hen naturally lent itself to Teuccimama. And so in that regard, moms in all of their best forms have their good days and their bad days. And so my company affectionately refers to me as Mommy Dearest because it's a bit of a tease. And I have a pretty domineering personality. I'm very strong. So.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're strong. I have trouble, that image of Mommy Dearest. Just, I don't see that. But I tell you, Christina, I wanted you on the show because I heard you give a brilliant talk at Engage in Banff, last year.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you're welcome. And it was about what you called being a number two, and then you had a cooler name, which we'll get to later in place of the number two, but basically number two to someone like a David Beahm.
Correct.
And you got a standing ovation. And, I want to dig into that. But first, I understand that you went to NYU's Tisch,
yes.
Tisch School of the Arts in the late 90s. What was your focus there?
So at that time, the only musical theater department at Tisch was a studio called CAP 21, which stood for the Collaborative Arts Project for the 21st Century. Now that in turn, some of my classmates at the time have gone on to be huge stars.
Oh, yeah. Some people I would recognize.
Absolutely. Matthew Morrison from Glee is a dear friend. Lady Gaga came out of CAP 21. She wasn't one of my colleagues, but she was.
Did you see her around? Do you remember?
She was actually, I'm a little bit older than Stephanie.
Yeah.
But she was right behind me. But major Broadway stars, major film stars. So I was there and studied at Tisch. And I also got in addition to my BFA, I had a double major in English and American literature. So
whoa.
I'm a avid writer, avid reader,
But what was your dream at that time going to the school? To be on Broadway?
Yes. So from the time that I was in fourth grade, I was on the stage and singing, dancing, acting. My family always said that I would come in and say, look what I can do. Look what I was a performer from the very beginning. And so all throughout high school, I was studying at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco for their young actors workshop. And then set my eyes on New York City and got into Tisch, into a very, very competitive program.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I know that. But I'm just curious in terms of, I mean, if it's fourth grade, you're talking 9 years old, getting ready to turn 10. Did anyone in your family do that? I'm just wondering where this came from.
So my mom's an artist. My dad was an auditor, and I can't.
Okay, like the opposite.
Yeah,
talk about balance in a family.
Exactly. But my grandmother, my great grandmother on my mother's side was on the Portuguese radio when she came over to the States. So she was very much a cult, like within our community, a bit of a radio celebrity. And then my dad's mother sang opera. And so never professionally, she did it on the side, but that I had a bit of performance in my background. Yeah. But I'm a bit of an odd bird within my family. I'm certainly the one that loves the spotlight and loves to be out there and perform. Well,
when you were graduating, I am assuming you started hitting the street doing auditions, right? Just a ton of auditions.
So, and here's a little bit of a story. By the time I had graduated from NYU in 2001, I had performed at Lincoln Center. I had performed at Carnegie Hall, and I was up for my first big Broadway role.
Whoa, now performing, singing and dancing, like
singing,
the whole thing?
Yeah, singing.
Okay.
Yeah, singing and acting. I wasn't, those two particular performances wasn't dancing,
Gotcha.
but had performed there. And then I was up for a role in Footloose on Broadway, which was...
No kidding. And you're like 20, 21?
21.
Okay.
And so that, I graduated from Tisch in May. In June, my grandmother, who is up there in age, she passed away. But my 57-year-old father died quite unexpectedly July.
Yeah.
And then 9/11 happened that September.
Oh, come on. All these three right in a row.
Right, back to back.
And this is when you were rehearsing for it?
I am fresh out of college. I'm auditioning. I'm, up for...
But you were up for this role.
I'm up for this role.
Okay.
I ended up not getting it, but that wasn't...
But you knew something was happening here, like you were on your way.
Correct. And then all of this happened. So my personal life, my city, everything was in a shambles. And I would literally come home at night from a thankless retail job and, kick open a bottle of cheap red wine and cry. I mean, it was just really hard. And I had lost my father, who really, truly had been the center of my universe. And I have an amazing family, and I absolutely adore my mom, but I was most assuredly a daddy's girl. And so in this wealth of depression and this wealth of sadness, I would flip through the pages of my bridal magazines, because I had been collecting bridal magazines.
Why bridal magazines?
Because there is, in my mind, it's the last vestige of pageantry we have in the United States. There's the royal families abroad, but we don't really have that here. The very nature of the United States sort of eschewed that. And there's something quite royal and quite formal about weddings, and I loved it. And theatrical. I mean, you get to put on a gorgeous, glorious dress. Everybody gets dressed to the nines. There's jewelry involved.
And there's a lot of ritual, or at least back then, a lot of ritual, tradition to it.
And so I would, just sort of get through the day, flip through these glossy magazines. And one day, and this was really, we're talking 2001. So we're at the beginning of the height, how, this industry and how it's grown.
It's
exactly.
Yeah.
But there was Preston, there was Colin.
Yeah. Robert
Isabel, who David used to work for, actually, when he moved to the city. And I thought to myself one day, after coming home from a particularly brutal retail day, I just thought to myself, why don't I do what makes me happy? why don't I start looking at weddings? I can't go and audition. Like, I'm devastated. I can't put myself emotionally out there to be critiqued.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult.
Yeah.
So I went down one day when had a day off, went down to my local internet cafe because I surely didn't have internet at my house at that time, let alone Wi-Fi.
I remember those, yeah.
And went on to this brand new thing called the knot.com.
Okay.
And I created a fake profile for myself.
On.
Yeah, bride, Christina Matteucci.
And you're not engaged?
No.
Were you in a relationship
I was
at
in
the
a
time?
relationship,
but not yet ready.
Yeah.
And you created...
And I created this fake profile for myself. Now, at the time, the knot would rate the people by dollar signs.
What?
Yeah, so you could sort...
Put in a budget?
Yeah, you could sort vendors by dollar signs. So based on how much you wanted to spend. And I'm sure to some extent there's still that filter on their site now with vendors. But in my mind, I thought $5 signs meant the very best there was out there. So I filtered this out by $5 signs, and in and amongst the Collins and the Prestons, who I knew, I mean, at that point, they were touring.
Well, with the magazines.
Yeah, exactly. I found this David Beahm.
But wait a minute, Christina, what was your purpose to creating it?
It was my source to find out who I should go send my resume to. It was like
This is brilliant.
It was like a job board without being a job board. So I went and
I'm like blown away.
I found this David Beahm, and I went and typed in www.davidbeahm.com, and it was just a landing page.
Okay.
Because he was still starting out.
Yeah, listen, he, as you know, he was on the show and really tells a story that's amazing about this whole start. And so I'm not surprised, right? So just a landing page.
Just a landing page. But I did a little bit of research and found out that he had just done Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas's wedding.
Right.
But I also found out that his company was relatively young. Uh-huh. And in my mind, I'm like, great, I don't have to wade through people who have been working for him for 4 or 5 years. I don't have to I don't have to prove myself through other people. Mm-hmm. I can go in and show exactly who I am and exactly what I bring to the table now for him, because his company is still young enough.
Christina, but what were you thinking of bringing to the table?
Well, I'm a natural...
Yourself, basically.
Myself. I'm a natural organizer. Uh-huh. I am, as I said, my dad was an auditor and an accountant. So I have a I'm very, very organized, very anal retentive. If I wasn't a Cancer, I'd say I was a Virgo, like very, very detail oriented. I'm an organizer. And I knew he was an artist. So I said, I'm going to go in and I'm going to...
because you had that side of you too, so you knew what he might be missing.
Correct. And so I proceeded to, and this is when I think back on it and I'm like, my God, I was really, really plucky. Like, if I don't think I would have the bravery now to do what I did then, but I was in this place and I didn't want to continue working this retail job. So I focused on David. And so what I would do is the first Monday of the month, I would fax David's office a cover letter and a resume. And then I would call the office the Wednesday after to make sure he got the fax.
Yeah.
And that went on for 8 months.
Wait a minute. Whoa. Did you get any response in the beginning?
Yes, we got your resume. Thank you so much. We'll keep it on file.
And then I'm trying to understand, you did it again.
Every month.
You would, and you would not say, hey, I'm the one who was in touch. Would you pretend like this is just brand new?
No, I'd be like, hey, just checking in again. Wanted to see if there's been any openings.
Wow. And you did that for 8 months.
8 months.
And what was the moment? What happened?
So finally, somebody who was in his office said he was just using temporarily, said, would you please call this girl so she'll just leave us alone?
Yeah.
Please, just call her. And he got on the phone with me and I started talking to him and he said, okay, all right, meet me at the W Union Square. Now, at the time, David was living and working out of his studio. It was tiny. I mean, it was...
And didn't want anyone to know.
He didn't want me to see it.
Yeah.
So I put on the only suit I owned.
Aw.
I remember that suit. vividly. I remember exactly what I had on that day.
What was it?
This black suit with pleats were really big then.
Yes.
Because Darcy Miller had just gotten married and she had pleating on the back of her train.
Yeah.
It was divine. Anyway, so I went and this suit had a little pleats on the kick pleat and a pink business shirt and these high-heeled shoes, and I strutted into the W Union Square lobby, and we sat down in the lobby, and what he says is that at that meeting, he was like, shit, I gotta hire her.
I love that.
So we had 3 more meetings, and he was, scared to bring someone on. I mean, we're talking about New York right after 9/11.
Yeah.
It was volatile.
Yes, I was going to say.
And that's being gentle.
No, business took a dive and we didn't know what was going to happen.
Exactly. And he was scared. He was like, I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to be able to employ you in 6 months, but let's give it a shot. And he hired me, and I've been with him this is my 18th year with David.
Amazing. 18 years. Why do you think that it's been 18 years? That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. And we often say we have a work marriage, but I actually think it's more of like a mental firewire. Like we're connected in a way. We complete each other in a really beautiful way. So, David's an artist. He sees the big picture in a way that oftentimes I can't. I'm learning, but he sees a beautiful big picture and he knows how to achieve it. And my strength set is getting all of those infinitesimal details in order for him to be able to complete that big picture.
Yes.
So I love an Excel spreadsheet. Give me an Excel spreadsheet all day long.
Can you work for me too, please?
But David prefers a big white piece of paper.
Yeah.
And in that way, we are able to feed each other creatively, intellectually, organizationally, and we have a really wonderful work marriage. It's not always perfect. It's taken a lot of work to get to the place we are now, and it takes continued work.
So you mean like you would butt heads a lot in a sense?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean,
so you were honest and direct, which is probably why he loves you so much as part of it.
Not at the beginning. I was quite scared to express myself in a way and say, these are the things that I need. I'm very much a Gen Xer, so I'm very in the most traditional sense of the word, which is like buckle down, get the work done, don't complain, don't self-advocate. I'm very much of that generation.
I find that hard to believe.
It's true though. I am, and so it was a bit difficult for me to express challenges to him as we got more down the line and got more comfortable with each other. But we've had coaching, we've had like counseling
and like therapy in a sense. Yeah.
And it's provided a tremendous means of being able to express ourselves to each other. So for example, I'm much more comfortable communicating challenges to David in the written word.
Yeah.
Because I find that I don't get flustered, or I can express myself clearly and really think about what I want to say without having my emotions swell up and cloud my thought.
Interesting.
But interestingly enough, and this was something that we uncovered in counseling, was that David was turned off by that and quite scared by the fact that I was communicating in a written manner because it seemed quite formal.
But also the other person is reading into it perhaps things that you did not intend.
Right. But once we got that out on the table and I was just like, no, David, this is how I express myself in the best way. Yeah. And he was like, great, fine. But once that's out, can we have a conversation about it? Then it became a lot easier to talk and to work through things that are challenging.
Before we get to, because I'd love to hear about challenges, things that come up, but what are your responsibilities if you're able to get a little more specific about, what you do as executive director?
I would say about 10 years ago, we did the grand reopening of the Royal Hawaiian in Waikiki. And that was really my first taste of producing events outside of New York City. Oh. And after that, I broached the topic of David Beahm Destinations with him. And so I really spearhead all of our major endeavors that are outside of the tri-state area. Now, I still very much deal with our clients that are here in the city. And I absolutely take care of our a number of our legacy clients, the clients who have been with us, all 18 years. But I'm very front facing with our clients. So I actually act as an intermediary between David and the client sometimes, between the client and our production team, and really am front facing. So essentially a sales position.
I was going to ask if there's some of that.
But it's much more involved than that, because it cannot be so compartmentalized that it's a sale and then you pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah.
This is an emotional industry. It's an industry based on feelings.
Yes.
And so there's far too much involved in creating a relationship with the client to just sell a David Beahm wedding and then not show up the day of the wedding.
Yeah.
So I'm there from the
beginning to the end.
From the minute that first truck arrives, I'm there until she's down the aisle or the invitation begins.
Yeah.
And that has been a really wonderful experience for me. And I've learned a tremendous amount, and I've gotten to travel the world, which is a blessing.
Yeah. Well, I want to dig a little more into, and again, what you originally called being a number two.
Yes.
You said at Engage, I might be paraphrasing, but you said being a great number one is about an artist bringing another artist out and finding the magic and maintaining it. Can you say more about that? I love that.
Yeah. Well, I relate it to a very great backup singer and the colors that a backup singer brings to a song.
Yes.
If you were to take any song, and this is my music degree coming out right now,
I
right?
love it. I'm right there with you.
If you take a song, any track, a popular track, and you remove the backup singers, it takes something away.
Yeah.
It colors the song.
It does.
But great backup singers, great backup vocals are ones where they're given the freedom to really go for it and create beautiful harmonies. And they're not necessarily reading from sheet music.
Yes. Which helps the lead singer to really come out. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I relate it to that. So David gives me the freedom to do what I do well.
Yeah.
And by doing that, to make his business better and to inspire my team and to be inspired by my team to be better myself. So that's how I think of it. And David does really allow not only me, but every single member of our team the platform to fly.
Many of our past guests, including Brian Raffinelli, Cece Johnson, Colin Cowie, and Lynn Easton, all use Party Slate to showcase their event work and build their businesses. And if you're not familiar with Party Slate, it's a website that inspires people planning events and connects them with the leading event professionals and venues across the country and the world. This is a really, really great website. You can sign up for a free profile where you can upload unlimited photos and events, or you can explore one of their membership options for even more exposure. And Party Slate has launched in 11 cities so far, including Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Dallas, and Miami. And they are coming to a city near you soon. Visit partyslate.com to learn more. Again, you really got to check out partyslate.com. Can you give me an example or two, of where you've really been able to, again, given how much he supports you and encourages it, where a story or two of doing that? Yeah. I mean, I know you're doing this every day, all the time.
So there's infinitesimal examples on any given job site where decisions have to be made in real time. What color are we going to dress the booms in for the lighting? What are we going, how are we going to troubleshoot the fact that carpeting is, somebody spilled a giant bottle of red wine on that carpeting at the party last night and there's not enough time to resolve that by tonight's event. So how do we deal with these things in real time?
Yeah.
David gives me and our team the power to problem solve that problem solve those issues, but then he supports the decision.
Do you have to check it out with them? There's a certain part where obviously you don't.
Yeah, there's oftentimes that
depending.
you're making decisions in real time, and you don't have the time to call. You need to make the call.
And he obviously trusts that,
and he supports that decision, which I think is critical, because I have seen many relationships in this industry and beyond go sour because there's not a level of trust and there's not a level of confidence in the decision. Because I'm a firm believer that you empower your team to make the decision. If it's not the decision you would have made, then on the back end, you do, you reconcile that with your team and say, okay, why did you make that call? This is the call I would have made and why.
Yeah. Let's
talk about it. You do a postmortem and really evaluate those decisions. But for the most part, David is 100%, he backs our team and allows us to do what we do well.
I think it's also for what we're calling number ones here. A lot of times it's a control issue too.
150%.
It may not necessarily be a trust issue, but I get that ultimately it becomes that.
It can also be a level of ego. That things need to be the way they want them to be just because it's their name on the door.
Well, I was going to say the responsibility on their shoulders.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair, but it does create a certain energy and a certain sense of community with, or lack thereof,
That's right.
community within your team.
Have you ever seen yourself as being an entrepreneur?
No, I'm a kingmaker.
Whoa.
I'm a kingmaker. And I will say this, now that I'm speaking more often, and it's the side of that is, that's something that I'm doing, yes, in conjunction with David, but on my own is odd to me. It's sort of like an uncomfortable place because I do thrive in the kingmaker role. But no, in terms of having a business like to David's on my own, no, I truly do thrive making other people successful.
Even though in your particular case, you were on stage.
Yes.
You were it. How are you able to still stay fulfilled without having your name on the door?
Because, and this is truly a credit to David, is because he openly thanks our team and gives us applause.
And we need that. We all need that. The recognition.
That. Exactly.
He acknowledges you.
Exactly. And that's not just in front of a client. Like, don't thank me. You need to thank. He says that all the time. Don't thank me. You need to thank these guys. They made it happen. So it's not just only in front of a client or in front of a planner or an industry colleague, but it's also on social media. It's in Instagram posts. It's on Facebook. And that sort of support and truly applause, in a way, is key. And that's why I've never felt like I was stifled in that role in any way, shape, or form, or even being held back. There are times when David's just outright said, no, you have to do this for yourself. Go do it.
Wow.
I'm not letting you say no.
Yeah.
Go make that decision, make that call, run with it, drive the bus.
This is so important. I mean, I think about this a lot. Everyone needs this at any age. It's not just when we're children. And I think about that. I have a daughter. She's getting into her 20s now. And I'm not going to be fake about it, but I absolutely want her to know what I believe, what she's really clearly doing well with her passion. I want to support it and be frequent with it. And my own people who work for me, I just don't think people are giving enough, unless they're kids. Oh, great job, Tommy, Mary, great job. But as adults, we need it too.
And I'm particularly appreciative of it because I'm a control freak. So I know how hard it must be for him to let go in some ways and to trust that I and that our team are going to live up to the David Beahm standard. It's got to be incredibly hard. But on the flip side, we have some of the lowest turnover in the industry.
Yeah. Wow. That says it all.
It really does. All of our team members have been with us at this point, with the exception of our brand new office manager, have been with us for over 5 years.
Wow. See, and that's another skill set, I would say, for highly creative. Again, we'll say number ones, we'll stick with that. The entrepreneurs owning these businesses and it's their name out there. That is a skill that has got to be honed.
Indeed. But it starts with exactly what I'm talking about is that building that level of trust and knowing that the team that you have is going to have your back, because turnover costs money. This industry, if it's one thing, it's not standardized.
Yeah.
Every company runs differently.
There's no real standard best practices.
No, there really isn't. Every company runs differently. Every company has a different means of selling, of proposal writing, of conveying the idea to their clients.
Well, and this becomes part of the brand.
Exactly. And if you're really looking at this from a business perspective, let's say, and I'm just talking just really round figures here. Let's say that you've hired somebody and their salary is $100,000 a year. And it takes you a half of a year to onboard
train them up.
And train them on.
And it does.
That's a $50,000 investment.
That's a really
every
good point.
single time you lose someone, every single time you have turnover, it's a $50,000 investment. And that is something that in my speaking, I'm working to really fight against. I want to have way more number twos, number threes, number fours in this industry that are fulfilled. Because right now I feel like with the onset of the millennial generation, and don't get me wrong, I love my millennials. They have brought so much to our company in terms of creativity and thinking outside of the box. But there is a very strong sense that success is equal to having your name on the door. And I think people are being sold a bill of goods, because I think you can have a fabulous career. I have traveled the world. I have insurance. I have a retirement plan. I have benefits. I am creatively satisfied. I am allowed to follow my own pursuits. I'm thanked. I'm appreciated. And it's not my name on the door.
Well, and do you remember what you said at the end of your presentation? It was powerful, and
I don't have any legal liabilities.
That's it. When you said that, because, in my music company, I'm the number one. I'm sitting there thinking, wow, that's right. Ultimately, right.
I mean, I have all the stress. I really do. I do, because I care so much for what we've built.
Yeah.
And that part of that is time.
Yeah.
And the time and the love and the blood and the sweat and the tears that I've put into David Beahm. So I share that load with him of my own accord.
Right.
But I don't have any legal liability. And there's something to be said for that.
And we're talking about, part of that again, we'll keep calling the number one, is that they're bearing the risk ultimately.
Exactly.
And some people, even in my music business, I have to sometimes work with not as much people who work for me, but sometimes some band people, because we're doing high-end stuff.
Of course.
And sometimes I got to sit down and explain this, that look, I need you, and you are a huge part of this creative effort. But in the end, I took the risk, whatever that is, financially, in all kinds of ways.
Which is why the trust element is so hard for number ones, and why it should be so honored by number twos.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Well, is there anything else about being the number two, like what a number one can do to keep the number two? You've talked a lot about it already, how much David's, for example, granting and encouraging creative freedom, and he's really listening and all of that. Is there anything else that the entrepreneur should be aware of to help keep and develop a number two, as we call?
I do think forward thinking is a really important thing.
And what do you mean by that?
Having regular conversations with the number two.
Yeah.
Or number three or number four, as to where do you want to be? where is this
I thought
going?
you were just about just how things are going, how we're going, but no, where do you want to go? What do you want to do?
Where do you want to be, and how can I help you achieve that?
Ah.
For me, this speaking and coaching and lecturing, this is a whole new endeavor for me. And I was quite scared to talk to David about it and say, I really have a passion for this. I would like to pursue this on the side. It doesn't mean I'm leaving you. It doesn't mean I'm any less loyal to you.
See, and we need to hear that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was scared to do it.
Yeah.
I was scared to talk about it. And he said, that was one of the times when he was like, you may not do this.
I love that.
You must.
I could see David seeing
this.
I can hear him. Yeah.
He really got quite aggressive. Not aggressive, but he was like, you may not do this. You're good at it. You have something to say and you have something to contribute. And so I would say for the number ones out there, in addition to, yes, granting and encouraging creative freedom, listening, being there for your people in the trenches, being forward thinking, saying, where do you want to go yourself? Where do we want to go together?
Oh, I like that. A strong number two is, and I remember Debbie Geller talking about this with hers, Paige, and Lynn talking about Augusta. A lot of people, how critical that is to really, there is a certain amount of partnership there too.
Yes. Whether or not you have any shares in that company, whether or not you have any ownership, it's a shared win or it's a shared loss. You are part and parcel with the success or the failure of that company.
And you, Christina, have a different perspective on the business and everything than David may have, but you completely understand the shared common goal.
Yes.
So to share that different angle on it,
yes.
different perspective on it.
Exactly.
So you all talk, like, how often would you say in general do you speak about this? You check in with each other.
Oh, we're always talking about,
it's continuous.
It's just a constant dialogue, whether we're, driving out to Long Island and have an hour in the car together. Well, I was thinking about this. What do you think about this? And what if we did this pricing structure? And what do you think of if we, we're constantly bandying ideas back and forth and talking about what we could do or what about this, and just always looking toward the future.
Mm-hmm.
Never feeling stagnant.
Yes.
Because, and again, it's my choice. I don't wish to have my name on the door, but I can understand how for some people that could feel like a ceiling. And I don't think it has to feel like a ceiling if the business owner is willing to step in and allow that person to grow alongside them on their own, just to continue to develop.
Yeah.
Continuing education, side passion projects, all of those things are important.
Yeah, this is really good, I think, for people to hear, and as opposed to having a fear about it.
Yeah, because I think a lot of number ones do. Well, if I, maybe somebody's super into yoga, they've got a really passionate feeling about yoga. Well, if I really, if I let him really get into that and give him the space to do that, is he going to, up and leave me and start a yoga practice? Well, sure, he could. Yeah. And that's the risk you take.
Right.
But if you really give that person the space to do that and the opportunity to do that while still in, heavily relying upon them in the context of your work environment, it's like a win-win for that person. Yeah, because you have all the opportunity to pursue your passions, and yet you still know that you're going to get your paycheck every 2 weeks.
That's right. That's a nice thing, I imagine.
Exactly.
I don't know what that's like.
So, I do think that sense of, again, forward thinking, the planning and really evaluation every so often is really crucial to keeping someone around for a long time.
And I remember too, Christina, when you were speaking, I think maybe it was toward the end, there was another name you came up with, which was adjacent number one. Yeah. Because some people are not comfortable referring to number two.
No shame here. I love being a number two. And that was part of it. Like would just go to networking events, and people would, part of my impetus to speak on this subject matter was that people would come up to me and say things like, so when are you going to start your own business? Or, boy, David must be paying you really well. And it made me feel ashamed. It made me feel ashamed of who I was and the work that I was doing. And I have, at 40, I refuse to apologize for exemplary work, whether it's being a number one or a number two, or to be ashamed of exemplary work.
Yeah.
So the level of work that I do is grounded by the fact that I do have ownership of a vested interest in the success of this company. And so I never, while I am happy to call myself a number two, I've always thought of myself as number one adjacent. And that's because I do care so much about the success of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I really do embrace that title of number two. I mean, look at, you use that Star Trek reference, right? Like number two on Star Trek, but it's a crucial role.
Oh, I'm critical. Yeah, absolutely it is. I agree. Well, I want to ask you too, it's a little bit in a different direction. Earlier, you were talking about how part of what you do is nurture, or I'll paraphrase it, nurture these legacy clients.
Yes.
How do you and David create and maintain legacy clients?
So part of that is just continuing to have them be a part of our family, whether it's inviting, perfect example. One of actually a wedding that occurred before my time with David. So right before I joined David, he did a wedding for a lovely couple, and I just did their daughter's bat mitzvah.
Oh.
And that's terribly rewarding.
Yeah, that is.
I mean, that is a really deeply profound thing, especially for David to see that.
Yeah.
To see that progression. But that client was absolutely invited to our anniversary party.
Aw.
And they were there dancing the night away with us. A lot of our clients are sort of akin to being members of our family.
But how do you stay in touch afterward?
Oh, so a lot of it is certainly social media, just like you stay in contact with your high school. So
you're friending everyone, and you're commenting, you're watching, following. You
stay in touch, being able to see on Instagram that one of our brides just had a baby. Sending a gift and a note.
But Christina, wait a minute. After all these years and clients, doesn't this get to be a lot to keep track of?
It does. And there are clients that sort of disappear of their own accord, and that's fine. And then maybe you'll hear them, they'll pop back up, and it's a delight to have them sort of come back into the fold. But for the ones that are like the true, the tried clients, it's not so unwieldy as you might think. And we do watch, and we do keep an eye and see what people are doing and what they're up to, because it's important for future business as well. If they're having a baby, 13 years from now, we got a bar mitzvah.
Listen, if you stick around, there might be a wedding.
Exactly. And I just did the wedding of a child that we had bar mitzvahed. So it's it's really
what
cool.
A beautiful thing.
It's very cool. It's very, very cool. And I'm very appreciative for it. Or even doing multiple siblings in a family. That's super cool.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
Then you're really part of the family.
Well, yeah. And you're getting to express all the, what we are. Bottom line, Andy, we're storytellers. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We're creating the sets and the environment and the ambiance to tell someone's life story.
Yeah.
The story of this coming together, whether it be a wedding or a birthday or anniversary or a mitzvah, we're telling a story. So it's all very fulfilling, and to be able to see all the siblings come up, and each one has a different story to tell, and to tell that story so exquisitely, that's a privilege.
Oh, I love it.
And it's an honor.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, I want to ask you, and first of all, I want to encourage people out there to bring you out because I saw you, I experienced your energy in person,
Thank you.
And the education too, and the inspiration that you gave. Can I ask you a little bit, have you formed yet the various kinds of topics that that you want to be talking, that you are and want to be talking more about publicly?
So I absolutely want to talk about, and that I have been called into companies to speak to their teams about how we at David Beahm work and how we troubleshoot things and communication. And so that's something that I'm super comfortable with. I'm constantly building my repertoire of speaking topics. I'm going to be back at Engage in Mexico in December.
That's right. I will be there.
I'm plugging away on a new topic for that. So there's lots to come. And I'm very excited. But yes, right now, what I'm talking about is truly creating a community of creative professionals that thrive in long-standing relationships. That's what I'm passionate about.
I love that. Well, Christina, this has been, I've been wanting to interview you ever since that Banff thing, which was like a year and 3 months ago or something. So this is wonderful. And I want to get both the way to find you through David Beahm and through your own thing. We'll put it all in the show notes.
Great.
So people can go there.
Thank you.
Yeah. And be able to find that. And I just can't thank you enough. You are really, truly inspiring. I'm inspired by you.
Thank you so much. It's been a privilege and a real pleasure to be on this with you. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Christina Matteucci. Be sure to check out the website at davidbeahm.com and also to hear all about Christina's talk on TEDx. Very excited. It is tedxbeaconstreet.com/TEDxBeaconstreet-2019. We will have all of this in the show notes so you can get it there at theweddingbiz.com or on your cell phone podcast app. Also, social media platforms. Let's look at Instagram. It is Teuccimama, at Teuccimama. That's TEUCCIMAMA. Instagram at Teuccimama. Also, look at David Beahm, at David Beahm on Instagram. For Facebook, it's David Beahm Design. So we're going to put all this in the show notes along with Christina's LinkedIn address, so be sure to check it out. And please share this episode with your friends and colleagues. It really helps people to find us when you just give a direct referral. I appreciate it very, very much, as well as a top review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. That also is great for the show. Don't forget to listen to our follow-on segment on Wednesday, which is really every week. They come out on Wednesdays. It's called The Next Level, in which I have a guest co-host who is usually someone I've interviewed on the show. And together we talk about some of the highlights of the interview of the week to help break them down and give you advice and tips to raise your own business to the next level. And this week's guest co-host is going to be none other than Augusta Cole, who is the quote-unquote number 2 to Lynn Easton, who is a world-renowned planner and designer. So can't wait for you to hear my conversation with Augusta talking about this topic and about Christina. And then next week, I want to say the guest is going to be, I need another drum roll, Michael Cirbelli of Cirbelli Creative, very popular event planner and designer, works worldwide. He is the creator of the very well-known Hot 100 list, which you could hear at almost every major conference on events. So be sure to check in next week to hear that. And also, I want to thank one more time our wonderful sponsor, Party Slate. Be sure to check out Party Slate at partyslate.com. It is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful service. We'll catch you all next week on The Wedding Biz.